welcome to Final Fights. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that just did several flips through a parking garage. It's Norbert Morvan.
There can be only one.
It makes the first fight in this movie between, I already forgot the name of the guy that he fights. The first guy, Oman, in the car park.
Yes.
So this guy, he just seems like this stock generic dude, but then he starts doing backflips off cars. Then he starts doing backflips through the parking garage. This guy is an acrobatic Highlander. Or not a Highlander. I call them all Highlanders, but they're all mortals with the quickening. But
Right.
I mean, come on.
It's the strangest thing in the world. This guy, Highlander, he just comes out of nowhere in the parking lot. He looks like 15 minutes ago he just received, a terminal cancer decision from the doctor. And the next thing you know, backflipping.
I love it.
And not just backflipping through soaking wet garage with at least 3 inches of just water. And it's just pouring from the ceiling. And it's Madison Square Garden. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to backflip. Why not? Why not? I got terminal cancer anyway. It doesn't matter.
Just an empty parking. I wish during this scene they just would have shown someone walking to their car and seeing this and then just turning around and walking away.
Well, the reason why is because, pro wrestling was on, man. The fabulous Freebirds are up there with the fighting against the Samoans and a couple of jobbers.
Yeah. You got to stay to the end of that.
You got to. Oh,
I love it. But hey, thank you for joining me. And just in honor of, I was thinking about this, and the 35th anniversary of Highlander is coming up on March 7th today.
Unbelievable.
And so this is 35 years. And you and I, I'm 38. We're the same age, right? You're like 43.
Yeah, man. That's it. March 1st was the birthday. That's it.
So we grew up with this movie, and we grew up with the TV show. We grew up with the sequels. And even though the sequels weren't good, you still have Michael Ironside. You have Mario Van Peebles. You have these really bombastic things. And then you have Connor and Duncan meeting up together in the fourth film. And we've just grown up with this Highlander lore. There can be only one, with Sean Connery playing a Spaniard.
Amazing.
And I just wanted to bring you in for this final fight to kind of continue our series of final fights. You joined me for the Aliens episode. And what I love about this is I love how they build towards this. Because when we first meet the Kurgan, who was just a part of a race of ancient warriors. And apparently the Kurgans fought for the Vandals, the Goths, the Huns, the Vikings. I mean, like Genghis Khan.
They're psychos. They eat the flesh of the living and the dead. They give no quarter, and neither do they take any. These are insane people who eat steak tartare for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And I love the first introduction because we're at Eilean Donan in Scotland, which I've been by. It's on the way to Isle of Skye, beautiful location. And you have the MacLeods versus the Frasers. The Kurgan's going to help them, but he just wants to kill MacLeod. MacLeod is mortally wounded. He comes back. He gets thrown away. Then he gets trained by Ramirez. Then you get the really cool Kurgan and Ramirez fight, which for 9-10-year-old me watching Connery get his head lopped off. I mean, that was man, that really.
Look, James Bond doesn't get decapitated.
Exactly. That's
full stop.
That's a Deep Blue Sea moment right there, even though it happened long before Deep Blue Sea. So you get the Ramirez fight, and then you get the fight between Kurgan and Nash. All right, I guess you have to do air quotes Nash in this movie.
Right.
And it's him with the sword, Nash with a pipe. They're fighting through the alleys. The cops come, they both run away. But I like that. And at first, the Kurgan is just a monster and just kind of wipes out MacLeod. Then you get the fight where Nash or Connor is just scrambling, right? You have this giant Kurgan going at him, trying to wipe him out, Clancy Brown. Then you have the fight between the Kurgan and Castigar, which that dude was cool, and he was one of the final Highlanders.
He was a nice guy. He had excellent sartorial choices, awesome fashion. And it seemed like he and Connor used to really cut it up like a couple of benches in the streets. They used to just get it in with the coffee and the ladies. And he gets his head lopped off. And then the Kurgan meets the Punisher.
Yes, gets lit up by an Uzi.
The Kurgan meets the Punisher and then carjacks an old lady. It's just insane.
He picks him up in the air with his sword too and just throws him, which is beautiful. The Punisher lives though, doesn't he?
The Punisher gets run through by a 7-foot broadsword and lives to tell the tale, you know?
I wish I could be in a bar telling that story.
Could you imagine? So this friggin' guy, right? You know, he's dressed like a biker or some kind of a punk that you see in the CBGB. And so, you know, I light him up with half a clip, and then this friggin' guy, get out of it over here, over there.
Oh, it's beautiful. And it all leads to the final fight where the Kurgan kidnaps Brenda, who, the beginning of the final fight, right, at Silver Cup,
Yes.
it's a little annoying because she's just screaming for about 5 minutes, but she does avenge herself. She does pull herself up after the sign falls, and then she blocks his sword strike with a pipe. So it's cool. Duncan gets a cheeky... Oh, Connor. Yeah. Connor, not Duncan, gets a... I mix them up, Norbert, so...
It's not your fault. Yeah. I mean, they kind of planned it this way. You know, she comes out of nowhere with the pipe. What kept you?
And also, famously, Christopher Lambert couldn't speak much English at the time, but he loved... The director, Russell McCauley, loved him in Greystroke, so he cast him. And I gotta tell you, this is what I love most about the final fight. It's that Clancy Brown is an excellent villain. I know Clancy Brown wanted to wear a top hat and wear suits and be all refined, but his punk rock villainy and his size and the way he the footwork in this final fight, and when the swords hit,
agreed.
You know, we watch some of these final fights with sword fights, and it seems like it's two styrofoam things blopping on each other.
Right.
This though, it's not. It's beautiful.
Yeah, definite weight and heft to the Clancy sword. And it's so great that he carries it in that briefcase and then puts it together and just has this really intense focus meditation thing that he does in his room with the sword. That sword is a part of him, man. He's completely in his job, his life. I murder dudes. There can be only one. That's it. That's what he's all about. And that sword is amazing. And it looks heavy. And he's just, I'm Clancy Brown, so I just wield it with one hand because IDGAF, baby.
And that's what I love. And also, I started watching Christopher Lambert. He started training with a huge Olympic champion Bob Anderson for this role. And so when you watch the fight and watch their foot, like their feet movement, is that the right word? Watch the way they move their feet. Like, you know, you watch
feet work in the NBA's
feet work. You know, feet work, good footwork. Oh man, footwork. Like I said the other day, I called a bakery a bread store, so my words are getting crazy here. But the footwork, and you watch a good defender in the NBA, right? Or when you watch soccer, I mean, just watching the way that they move their feet is just it's beautiful to watch. And in this one, they don't cross their legs. They're not doing jabroni moves. And I would get wiped out by these guys in a second. If you and I had a sword fight, Norbert, it would be horrifying. And you and I would be tired after about a minute if one of us wasn't dead.
I would stab myself, quite frankly.
Yeah, exactly. But watching the footwork and watching the way that, also the camera work at the end when they fall through the roof. They put a camera on a chair and they were just pushing it around. And it makes just this beautifully epic wide-angled shot. And that's what I love about it, Norbert. These two guys took these fight scenes seriously and that allowed the director and DP to have wide shots in which they traded 4 or 5 blows at a time. And you don't have to overcut it. And it's such a refreshing sword fight. I don't know if people nowadays would love it because these are heavy swords and it's not really easy to swing them. But I adore this final fight.
And it's not fast. It's not episode 3. Revenge of the Sith. Wing, 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 wing. No, this is 2 guys kind of approaching their 40s, and we actually are trying to cut each other's heads off. So we need to take our time with this and get it right,
Yeah.
And Mulcahy, ex-music video director, you can absolutely see it when they're in the Silver Cup studios, the way that you got the blue gels in the background on the windows, and just the floor is kind of wet, and even in part 2 the floor is also wet when he has the final fight with Ironside. So it's just Highlanders like to fight in moisture, man, because it helps the swords do all the sparking and whatnot that Mulcahy loves.
That they attached to car batteries and then had a cable.
That's awesome.
And you know what I love too is he also directed Resident Evil Extinction, which makes me happy, by the way. But
nice.
You made a great point about the music video, because you could easily have AC/DC in this set for a music video.
100%.
Aerosmith could be there, but you do it for a sword fight, and it feels really novel. And when the score kicks in, and okay, I guess we should go back where so he goes to get Brenda, she's tied up on the Silver Cup Studio sign, and that's where the first fight takes place. You have the Kurgan and Connor in close proximity on a sign. You can't really swing much. Kurgan has the advantage because he has better front kicks, and he's just stronger. And then they get knocked down to the top of the building, which a massive flood breaks out. And I would say, once again, the Kurgan is just... I mean, Connor's worried about Brenda, but the Kurgan has control, I would say. In maybe like slower combat, closer combat, Kurgan's better.
Yes.
Yeah, because
he's got so much reach, dude. He's got reach, and again, the sword. I'm going to just keep increasing the size. The sword is 11 feet long and weighs 80 pounds. You know, and he's just Highlander, not on holy ground, Highlander. You know, and he's incredibly intimidating. His eyes turn black after MacLeod gives him one of the killing blows. You know, the guy is not to be played with, and he uses the range that he has like a boxer to just keep MacLeod away, so that he can keep coming in with these big, heavy killing blows. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No, you're right though. If you're wading in water against the Kurgan, you're done because you don't have the freedom of movement against him. So the Kurgan is just wiping him out, and I love when they fall through the roof. None of the water falls through, by the way, but which is interesting. But they what I love too is when Kurgan starts getting sliced up. And if you watch a lot of JCVD movies, right? You got Chong Li, Tong Po, they completely fall apart at the end. As much as I love Chong Li, when JCVD gets blinded, he just sort of cheers, and then JCVD whaps him and he just falls apart. Tong Po completely just falls apart. I mean, we're talking the bully becomes the bullied, and you show their weakness. But in this one, Kurgan seems curious about these slices. Kurgan smiles. Kurgan never stops. He never shows fear. It's just, I think Kurgan knows he's dead, but he's not going to stop fighting or backing down. And it's a really interesting character choice by Brown and the director to have this villain who almost is like, what is this going to feel like? It's really cool, Norbert. I love the decision that they made.
So totally agree with you, man. Kurgan has shown you throughout the film that he's clearly a nihilist, and he's just into destruction, murder, and pain. I mean, Ramirez almost cuts his head off.
Yeah.
And then I'm in disguise. So he shaves his head, gets a freaky tattoo, and he just puts safety pins through the cut on his neck because this is a disguise. This is to keep attention away from you. He's a total nut, man. He's a total nut.
Oh, yeah. Those safety pins are insane, aren't they? Oh, my gosh.
It hurts. And he never notices it because it's just, his fashion. As the Korean kids say, fashion, teacher, my fashion.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think that's what makes this fight, though, is it's treated. This is another thing I like. In a lot of films, the final fight just feels like a stock smash 'em up. Where, I don't want to be this person, but a lot of the recent superhero movies, the finale is kind of an afterthought with just CGI characters bonking each other. And that's fine.
That's what it's going to be.
And that's fine. Yeah. And I like those movies. I probably own them all. But it's for me, these movies, my least favorite part's the final fight. It's everything else that I love about them. But this one, it builds towards it. You have the altercations between Kurgan and MacLeod throughout. And then you have a 3-tiered fight that just feels epic. And it feels like we said, an Aerosmith video. It gets treated like a rock star fight. And there's a gravity to it. There's a good villain. It tells an interesting narrative story about how Connor loses when they're, when he's treading in water, when he's in a tight space, and then when they get to the bottom in his white shoes. I love it. I love when Connor just blocks the Kurgan trying to swing his sword down. He just walks up and